Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning.
Good morning, Leo. How's it going?
It's very well. It's so nice to see you, Sarah. I missed you. You should never go away.
I know. I missed you too. You have a lot happening, Leo. I want all the gossip.
I know, right?
The only
Busy.
man crazy enough to get married and move within a 2-day time span with 2 small children.
Look, I can't wait to tell you all. I really did. I really did think about how we've taken 4 years over the engagement. We've probably taken 5 years over the Brighton move. So why we all had to do it on the same weekend, I'll never know. But I guess that's just, that's us processing what we're trying to do. So everybody knows we are in position. We're married for one. Any people watching, you can see the ring.
Yay! Exciting.
Spoken for.
Congratulations, Leo.
Thanks, Sarah. Spoken for. And we are in our lovely new home in Brighton. And I'm looking above me at the window there, and the sun is shining, blue skies. We've been very, very lucky with the weather. It was amazing. Like, honestly, we had the wedding day itself, 12 family members and 3 children, so 15, and it was just nice. I wouldn't recommend trying to do anything bigger than that if you've got 2 small children, because our boy, who's 8 or 9 months, he doesn't want all that noise and stuff. Like, that was enough for him. So we were still running around and wiping bums, cleaning up sick and doing all that stuff that you have to do while we were in our fancy outfits. Like, I think I ended up with like a little bit of vomit on the arm of my white shirt and all that good stuff.
Cool.
So, it's not a glamorous day by any stretch of the imagination when you've got 2 kids, but it was awesome. And I'll send you some photos, Sarah, and I'll try and share them so people can see it on my Instagram of, Sadie was the ring bearer, so she came up and passed Jasmine and myself the rings, and Alfie looked so cute, and yeah, it was very, very nice. And then we had a roast dinner, a pub food, well, not a roast dinner. I always think that pub food, which for us is, for me and Jasmine, was fish and chips. I probably got to eat about 40% of it because I had the kids sort of running around me. So it was fun. And then we packed up and we've moved down, and we've already been walking on the beach and having family time and doing all that great stuff. So yeah, we're loving life, Sarah. We're loving life.
That's amazing. Have you got your new running route all planned out yet, Leo?
It's easy here. There's so many good ones, but yeah, you're right. I'm actually charging my Garmin watch at the moment because I'm going to try and get a bit more back into it. So yeah, there's some lovely boardwalks and different things you do. And plus, because it's by the sea, if you just want a flat run, you get a flat run along the sea. But it's very hilly here, so you can very quickly be up in hills, and so you can do a sort of more aggressive run if you want to. So yeah, I can't say I've done anything today, but I've been really good. I have actually been in a really good vein of form with my running since we moved down, but a little bit stressful at the moment because we're having to get Sadie orientated around a new nursery, a new daycare center, and that's a bit challenging. So she really didn't want to go in this morning. So I'm kind of sat there while she's having breakfast, and she doesn't want you to leave. But then they send me a picture on the app, because there's obviously an app for your daycare center now. Why wouldn't there be? And she's playing and she's doing things. So yeah, like a lot of new stuff. We're definitely doing a lot of new stuff. But it feels really, really good that we're here and we've done it, right?
That's amazing. I bet when you go to pick her up, she's not even going to want to see you. She's going to be like, no, come back tomorrow. I have all these new friends.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that. There's shades of that. She's a very confident kid. So once she gets herself settled in, she'll be good. But look, happy Thanksgiving, my friend. It's I'm convinced we need to spend it together next year. I'm going to lock you in for that. And tell us about you flew across the sea. How was it to see your family?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. And I didn't know this before I went. So my grandpa was one of 9 children, and so every year at Thanksgiving we get together at the farm where he was born. Basically, this big farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina. They've paved the road, which is disgusting. It was always a dirt road, so ruining the magic. But this turned out to be the last year. So the house has been passed through to all of his siblings, basically. And there was like one sibling left who was a farmer. And so he had all this land and was keeping up the property. And he's finally at the age now where it's just too much. So he is going to sell. So this was the last
Wow.
year of the King clan. I forgot to bring it on air. I got a mug and everything. I got an engraved mug,
Oh,
King Family Thanksgiving
wow, that's
on it with
amazing. So how many generations have had the farm? Like,
Yeah, so it was started so the farm belonged to my grandpa's mother's family. So it was her family's property originally. And then she inherited the farm, and then she had 9 children, and then her 9 children inherited it, and then each of those 9 children had between 2 and 4 children, and then each of those children had between 2 and 4 children. So there was I think we were about 75 this year, and that's counting a lot of the cousins that are like my age in their 30s and have families and have kids, and so they rotate holidays with their partners. And so, yeah, it was still a really, really, really big turnout. I know you'll be shocked to learn that we are a shouting family. We love to sit around and tell tales, and so we turned up, and there was like a basically like a PA system, with a big old microphone hooked up to an amplifier because everybody's old and they can't shout anymore. And so we had one representative from each one of the original siblings kind of come out and just tell an update about their family, and then we prayed for like 20 minutes, and then the food was cold, and then we had food.
I love it. What I'd have
Tell
given to be
everyone at
part of that.
Thanksgiving.
What I'd have been given to be part of that. Like, that sounds phenomenal. Your partner must have been like, "What is this? What is going on?"
Uh, he wanted to crawl under a hole and die. My auntie did it for our family, and she's like, "Oh, and Sarah Nan has a friend here," which everybody knows what that means in the South. And I thought he was, and then of course they got his name wrong. And then he just wanted to crawl in a hole and be buried there
I
and
love
never
it.
come back out.
In Barcelona, he's your partner. He's your significant other.
Yeah.
In the south of America, he's your friend. He's
My friend.
your
Mhm.
friend.
Yeah. My
Um,
friend, Sarah Nan's friend.
that sounds wonderful. I could talk. We could talk all day. You can tell, audience. You can tell we haven't caught up. It also explains why our listening figures are so good, right? Because I guess the majority of people that listen are just related to you somehow, right? Is that what's doing it?
I, I don't know. I don't know. I guess so.
75 people turning out. I mean, that's ludicrous, isn't it? And that's not everyone. I don't even have
No.
75 friends. Never get married, by the way. It'll cost you a fortune, won't it? To host that many people.
It does, yeah. I think there through the years there's been 2 different kinds of weddings in the family. There's been the weddings where they invite everyone,
Yeah.
and it is a real spectacle. And there's been the weddings where they just pretend like they eloped, and then they will, which really they didn't. And only the in crowd got invited, And so they'll give you the invitation on the sly, like, "Hey, I didn't invite the whole family, so keep your mouth shut and keep it off social media." And you're like, "Okay." Uh, so
Ridiculous. What else
that
could you
was
do, though? What else could you do if you have that many? I think it's unfair. There should be like an announcement to say, "Look, guys, no guilt around weddings, bar mitzvahs, christenings, whatever it is. Just go for your life, and there's no guilt."
Oh, not in the King family. Love a bit of a guilt trip in the King family. No, you got to invite everybody. So the classic one was we're gonna elope, and then when we would do the annual like get together, you would just have a reception, with the whole family. Because
Okay.
also half the family is Southern Baptist and they don't drink, and so if you want alcohol at your wedding, oh, you can't have the family. It's a whole thing, Leo.
Oh, God, this is so good. We should do a whole separate series on this. I mean, okay, right. I have so many questions, but I'm going to ask them off air because we have to talk about short-term rentals, Sarah.
Let's do
Um,
it.
Look, it's been busy. It's been busy in our personal lives. It's also been pretty busy in the industry. I do think there's a slight gap, isn't there, in the cycles around like post Thanksgiving, and then it'll ramp up a little bit, and then we'll be at Christmas, and it'll fall off a cliff again. By the way, happy nearly Christmas, my friend. We're celebrating this together. We'll have to make sure we do a special Christmassy episode when we get a bit closer. A couple of things have caught my eye this week. one of them pointed out to me my good friend of the show, Mark Simpson of Boostly, who loves a pub, I think, as much as I do. So Airbnb has set up a partnership with Camera, which is the Campaign for Real Ale, which in these challenging economic times for pubs has taken a real lead on trying to keep them open and keep them as the heartbeat of communities. For our listeners in Europe, you'll know, I'm sure it's the same thing in tavernas and village areas around Europe. This idea of what's the central point of the community. In the UK, it's the pub, and that very often meant a pub that doesn't even sell food. It's modernized now to be maybe there's a Sunday roast, maybe there's a full-on menu, maybe there's a Thai kitchen that's been allowed to come in to keep the community vibe going. And it's nice that Airbnb, I think, are seeing this as an opportunity to ingratiate themselves further into UK society. I think it's really, really smart. And they've essentially set up a competition. They've teamed up with Camera to offer makeovers to 3 different pubs, rooms that they have above the pub, valued at 10 grand each. The objective is to help boost the pub's turnover and income by having these rooms occupied by Airbnb guests. So again, I know there's going to be some cynicism, Sarah, because you always give us that nice healthy dose of it. Who cares what the motivation is, though? I'm sure you agree with me. How brilliant, because we've got these lovely villages around the country. We've got this lovely accommodation above the pubs, oftentimes not being used. And it's just that little push that people might need to think, well, why don't I put that up for rent on short-term rental? And then they're definitely going to come and eat in the pub, or at least have breakfast and all that good stuff. And it brings people into the villages. So again, it's part of this community strategy. We talked about it last week with Waltham Forest in London, trying to present what the borough has to offer. Now they're trying to help present the best of British, I think, these rural areas, local pubs that are struggling, for sure. Any thoughts on it, Sarah?
I want to know what time the pubs close and how loud the patrons are. That was my first thought. I think if I was in my 20s, I probably wouldn't mind, and I would think it was brilliant, right? I think now that anytime I was looking at reviews the other day, I'm going away for Christmas and reviews on something, and one of the reviews said something about, oh, there's a bar downstairs that's open till 2 a.m. And I thought, no way. No. I'm too old for that. So that would be my only, I guess, question mark. But if the pub closes at, midnight and it's a small town, as it might in a very small town.
I think it's midnight. I think most pubs are midnight, 11 midnight. By the way, that's your headline, guys. Who knew Sarah wasn't in her 20s? Wow, shocking.
I know. Shocking, guys. Sorry to disappoint.
All those gym classes, isn't it? Well done. No, it'll be 11. It'll be 11 p.m., 12 p.m. for sure. I mean, maybe there would be. I mean, God, yeah, you're right. Who'd book that? Who'd book a room above a nightclub?
Yeah, that was the only question mark I had. Other than that, I think it's actually really neat. It's space that's not being used. It's commercial space. I did have a question about the licensing as well. I feel like in Spain that would be an absolute nightmare to try and get a license for something like that. But I guess the point is to do it in places where nobody cares about a license, maybe.
Yeah,
or where it's, they're not as crowded areas.
I don't think we're as wedded to the licensing thing in the UK. I think there is. I think there's less regulation, especially out there in country areas where they do just want to try and attract visitors. I imagine as well, a lot of these rooms exist. They probably the licenses are probably in place already when you're applying. It's probably just tired. I imagine it's quite tired, and you've not invested in it or thought about putting it on a short-term rental platform. Because that's what I've always thought is interesting about the industry is. I did a bit of Googling before talking about this, and there's websites, rooms above pubs and things like that. So they exist, but I think maybe it's a play by Airbnb to bring these into the short-term rental, into their OTA ecosystem effectively. Because I imagine a lot of landlords and landladies aren't even thinking about these rooms as being Airbnb spaces. But everybody knows a lot of people search by looking at the map. So, if you're hovering over a town, your friend's getting married in one of these little villages, my God, you should have those rooms on Airbnb because, lots of people would map search that and go, oh, well, perfect. We'll just stay at the pub. Great.
I do think it's smart of Airbnb because I think it's something that, for example, a Booking.com couldn't come in and do as well, right? It's not on brand for them. Whereas for Airbnb, it does seem really on brand. It's local businesses, it's local accommodation. So I think they're doing something really neat. And I think they're doing it in the UK because if they try to do it anywhere else, they would get run out of town without a license. But I think it's really cool, and hopefully it will be an interesting way to kind of show that initiative and see how it works, and if it is attracting more people to some of these smaller towns. I mean, I went to a wedding in August, and it was in a really small town, and finding accommodation was a nightmare, because they're all teeny tiny little villages around there. And then to try and get a taxi was insane, and you don't want to drive after wedding. So it was, if I could have stayed, for example, right at the place or above the restaurant where the, wedding was being held, or somewhere walking distance, it would have been a lot better. So
it's the best of our industry. I always think that, like my the my mind instantly goes to the idea that you utilize what's in your area. So, for example, Superhog / Truvy CEO Humphrey, he has cottages at the back of his place, and they always get hit by the Glastonbury crowd or by or weddings. Like it's just whatever's happening in your area where like suddenly the usual supply can't cope with it, and then you get into it, and it's great because then locals get to monetize that. And I think it's just an education point, right? So that's what's smart, is that Airbnb people in the pub will know this is going on. They'll think, hold on a minute, well, actually there is that festival that happens every August. Why don't we rent out a room? And again, we talk about this idea to try and bring more unique inventory on. They're getting more, they're looking in deeper, darker places to try and find unique inventory as well, to make sure that they continue to grow. So I applaud it. I like it. Sarah, anything caught your eye this week? Any highlights for us?
no highlights, Leo. I'm lucky to be alive. I've got the jet lag real bad. I feel like I got run over by a train.
Sorry, I should have qualified that by saying, we know you're all. Thanks for just being here, Sarah, because we appreciate the jet lag, right? We appreciate that. That's real.
No highlights. No highlights.
What I've got, because I suspected you wouldn't have a highlight, because obviously the highlight for you is coming back to do the podcast with me. So one cheeky other thing did catch my eye, which I'll just very quickly go through, is Home to Go have set up a partnership with FlixBus. You know this? You know FlixBus, Sarah?
Yeah, I know FlixBus.
They're big in Europe, right? Yeah, they're big in Europe. Well, I've never ridden a FlixBus. Can you give the audience a little bit of tell us more about them?
I mean, it's just a bus. There's nothing very exciting about it, but they're cheap, and they tend to take. I would say so. For example, from Barcelona to Madrid, let's say in your own car, it would take you 6 hours without stopping. A FlixBus might take you 8 hours, but that bus might cost you 20 euros. So it's really cheap, especially between sort of major cities. And they also tend to stop in places that are like maybe you wouldn't normally find, let's say a train connection or another kind of bus connection. So oftentimes like it'll go almost directly to somewhere, but it'll stop in little towns outside of the major cities as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a bus. I've never had a terrible experience on a FlixBus, and they're cheap. So
I think we all know that Sarah doesn't really ride the FlixBus very often, don't we, audience? She's trying to pretend she's like all about the FlixBus. She's not. She's been on it once. She hated it. She complained the entire time.
I'm not. I went once or twice. It was fine. I mean, if there's no alternative, or a flight costs you, 200 euros and the FlixBus is 20, then like you'll take the FlixBus.
There you go. Well, look, I applaud this. I like this partnership from Home to Go. I always think Home to Go do smart things. And they've had a partnership with Flix, which offers travelers who book a Home to Go property a 10% discount on FlixBus or Flix Trains travel solutions. Why do we like it? Because I think it's linking how you get there, which we've talked about in a few different ways, right? Sustainability being one of them. So if you can convince someone to get a bus in rather than fly in, that unnecessarily short flight that you might think, I could take that, but hold on a minute. Actually, who are FlixBus? Oh, I can see they've got all these routes. Cool. That's a cool partnership. Oh, and I get a discount, even better. So it's how you get there, being responsible. And I think it's cool. I think it's what we're trying to promote in Europe, right? Is showing the good that our industry can do. So I'm sure it's more a PR stunt than anything else, but I like it as a PR stunt because it shows how we can be a force for good. And if one or two people take a more sustainable route to get into a city, great, it's done its job. What
Sounds
you got
great.
for us,
So
Sarah?
when are you getting on a FlixBus, Leo,
I am
with
never
Jasmine
getting
and
on. I'm never getting on a FlixBus with 2 children. Never. When my kids go to university and I'm having holidays on my own again with Jasmine, we'll be on the FlixBus. No, we love all that stuff. No, we would. Which to be fair, we did get the train to France. So no, I'd happily get the train. I think a bus is too much because of the you're a bit hemmed in, aren't you? You can't walk around. The train is great though.
Mm.
We're all about a bit of sustainable how to get there. Yeah. Whereas I think we're our bus days are sadly at this point over for us. Sadly, not so sadly, depending on your views. Right, Sarah, come on. Welcome back. What you got for us? What's caught your eye?
Oh, goodness. Well, to be fair to you, Leo, you pointed this one out to me. But it is an article from FocusWire. Google's updates search in Europe to comply with DMA. Oh, so here are the highlights. Basically, Google search is making a lot of changes to the platform. I think for me, the most notable change that came out of this article was in removing certain hotels and hotel features from the maps, from the results on Google Maps, in an effort to kind of comply with this DMA. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to find places? And so I think the overwhelming feeling that I had throughout this article, as Google is making all these changes, there was also a mention to, okay, rather than having any descriptive information, we might just have a hyperlink rather than putting the name of the hotel or whatever it is. And then if you wanted to go to the hotel, you have the hyperlink. All of this to me, while potentially making competition better overall, I think it makes a terrible experience for the user. And so I think in an effort to kind of police what's going on with Google as a gatekeeper, I think they've clipped their wings to the point where nobody's going to be able to find anything. Like, that's my biggest concern. It seems like it's going to be really difficult to locate a property on the map. Just the prime example we were talking about. You go to a wedding in a small town. You know nothing about the small town. What's the first thing you do? You open up Google Maps to see what's in and around there. And then, if this is within walking distance, then happy days. For me, it just means that you're going to have to go to an OTA to look for these things. You're going to have to go to some kind of meta search. Like, for me, Google was, I guess, the way around some of that competition.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the equalizer. And so it seems like this, for me, is taking a step backward. While I think well-intentioned, I think the application of it is making for a much worse user experience, and actually really meaning that if you don't pay for advertising for your property, like, there's no way you're going to be discoverable. Whereas previously, if you did a good job and you had good reviews and you were listed on Google Maps at least, which was free as far as I understand, then you're at least discoverable. So I don't know, Leo. What do you think?
I think I like your analysis so far. There's a really interesting debate here because I think the point of the Digital Markets Act, and we've touched on it because you got all these companies trying to now show that they're compliant. So we talked about Booking.com 2 weeks ago, right? And we're seeing that the parity point on hotel pricing. So we're applauding that and saying that's kind of clipping the wings of Booking.com. Problem is that, like, Google is such a monumental business. It's colossal in terms of what it's over. It dwarfs Booking.com, right? Which is a silly thing to say because they're not really directly comparable, but by the act, as gatekeepers, they're all treated in the same way. So that's instantly where I go, is like, should Google have been policed in a slightly different way? Because Google can be a force for good. Let's talk about map search. That's how I find things regularly. And how can we apply a lesson here to the short-term rental industry? Well, make sure you're a registered business on Google. Make sure that your properties show up in a map search. And we were kind of heading more towards this idea of Google being a meta search. A meta search for vacation rentals as well, right? When Google Vacation Rentals it exists, but it's not really been built out significantly. So Google is trying to make sure that you're finding the thing you need in the most efficient way possible. And you're right, as a customer, as you go back to things, if the experience isn't as good, then everybody loses. Now, there's an article in Skift to suggest that Google are being slightly disingenuous here and maybe showing in these trial markets, of which there's three, right? There's three trial markets across Europe, that the Digital Markets Act makes things worse, maybe to
Mm.
undermine the Digital Markets Act. But I don't know. I think it's probably a bit of both. I think ultimately, like, I like to search the way I want to search, and I can choose, of course, to go and search with a different search engine that either doesn't use cookies or is not I know all these things exist, but I just use Google, and I like using Google. So as a consumer, suddenly I'm a bit irritated by the fact that I'm not allowed to use Google. And again, how does this apply
Yeah.
to the short-term rental world? Because we're talking about flights and hotels here, but short-term rentals, this is still applicable. Is It's easier for me as an operator, large or small, to focus my attention on Chrome, Google Maps. Like, otherwise, my search budget's going up hugely. And
Mhm.
I do think you're right. I do think it slightly gives, whether it's this deliberate or not, to cause the controversy. I don't know. I'm not sure whether Google would even really care about this, but it is definitely favoring OTAs and aggregators because they have the volume such that you just click through and off you go. Especially if we're not doing anything to promote or feature and we're
Mhm.
just using links. So I read something. You probably read this as well. That because obviously again there's so many, you can look at this from so many different angles, but um May of this year, hotels, the volume of direct bookings drops as much as 36%
Mm.
in Europe versus previous previous years where they haven't had this, they haven't had to comply in this way. So who are we helping here? Who are we really helping? Google's job is to try and Google exists to make your search as efficient as possible and send you to the places you want to go faster. And we're changing the goalposts here and maybe inadvertently giving OTAs a helping hand at the same time. Don't know. Do you think there's
Yeah.
any skullduggery going on?
I think that it was, for me, this is a classic of lawmakers. They think, "Oh, this is a problem. Let's write a law to fix it." Okay, how are we gonna fix it? And then they don't actually think through any of the repercussions and what it's actually gonna mean. It's like they think, "Okay, this company is being abusive, right? Or this company has too much power. Let's reduce that," which in principle is a good thing, right? It's a good idea. I think the application of it, nobody thinks through, okay, well, if we do this, how is this company going to respond? And I think that for me is the part of the analysis that was never really done because, of course, as soon as you make Google comply with some of these, specific things within the DMA, they're left with no choice, right? So it's almost like nobody thought through what the actual consequences would be,
Mm.
and are they making it worse, which to me they are. It's an act that's meant to protect consumers, and to me it's giving us less choice, and it's less helpful, especially to small businesses. um I mean, how are you going to be discoverable at all
Yeah.
if you're not allowed to be on Google Maps? And I think you might be right. I think that it could be, and that's maybe why they did the pilot in a few select markets, so that they can potentially take that information back to the European Union and say, "Hey guys, here's the results. Consumers are losing. So let's go back to the drawing board." I hope that's what they're doing, because if this remains, I don't know what the future is going to look like. And it is a little bit scary that we've gotten to the point where we rely so much on one or two companies, right? And I think that was the original point of the DMA,
Yeah.
was we've gotten to that point and trying to break up that sort of monopoly. But I think the issue is it came in too late, and so there are no alternatives. If some of these things had been implemented little by little throughout the years, maybe we wouldn't have Google. We would have Google and five others that are more or less similar, right? And consumers would have more choice, and then that would be less of an issue. Um, but it's almost like the policing came too late, and now we're too dependent. Oh, this could be a sci-fi film.
It is. It's a dystopic. Oh, we're halfway through the dystopic novel. Um, I agree, Sarah. And again, this is why I go back to what I first said. Is like Google. You can't live with them, can't live without them, right? Are they almost too big at this point to fit within that regulation, and therefore do they need their own regulation above or outside of the Digital Markets Act. Again, I look at some of these companies, I think it's not that comparable because, again, I was speaking quite favorably of it last week when it came to Booking.com. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I would just say this: as an industry, you're trying to promote your business, and you're learning what the rules of the game are, which is that you make sure that you appear high up the search rankings, Google Maps. You have that whole solution. You've just made everybody's life harder, and at a time when regulation is so fierce, we do want to tell the story that there is a million different companies in this space, and a million different hosts. There's millions of hosts providing accommodation rather than just there being 4 or 5 dominant OTAs providing this solution, because that changes how policymakers will think about the industry, right? We've just, we know, I'm sure you've read the headlines too, Sarah. Budapest is the latest country there's a 2-year hiatus on applying for short-term rental licenses, kicking in from January 1st of next year. So this stuff is happening all the time. And again, like, what a better story to tell, to be like, oh, well, look, there's just a million small producers rather than there's 2 or 3 platforms. Not criticizing platforms, but they just can't, if they get given more prominence, I don't think that helps the industry. So ultimately, I've always felt like, oh my God, I'm going to say it. I disagree, or anyone at home, feel free to email and spam me and disagree on this. But I've always seen Google as being a force for good in our industry, because of the fact that they remain agnostic to certain things like, oh, that's just one property where one guest has given it a 1-star review and it's affected my rating in the short term. But and that the idea that you would promote, like an OTA might promote you based on how much availability you're giving, or whether you're giving really relaxed cancellation terms, all those different things. I've always quite liked the fact that, like, Google almost sits above that, in the sense that they're just trying to find the most efficient way to allow you to search for the thing you want. And I've always felt that there was opportunity in that. And I won't go over the things I've just said that I think the opportunities are, because I've repeated them several times during this episode. But yeah, I've always said I think Google's a good thing for our industry, not a bad thing. And so if they're getting clipped in this way, I find it worrying in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree, Leo. I mean, as a consumer, it's concerning to me. It's really concerning, because it basically means that your only option is to go to the OTAs. And so then it's almost like more work because for me, I always try and book directly if I can, or at least go to the website of so not only do you have to do all the filtering to find 1 or 2 places that might actually work for you on an OTA, but if you want to try and book directly, especially if for short-term rentals, for a hotel, that's easy enough. But I think it's most damaging really to the short-term rental industry, because you may have, 1 or 2 properties, and maybe you don't have a website, and maybe you have the direct booking capability that maybe used to be linked to Google somehow, or maybe you don't, and maybe you just have a phone number and people could book directly by calling or emailing. So I don't know. I really see, it's like legislation was meant to protect consumers, but for me, it's making it worse, and it's actually giving more power to the OTAs, which I think was the opposite of what it was supposed to do. So I think it's good in concept, failed in execution so far.
Yeah, funny how legislation can do that often, isn't it? We're seeing backpedaling in the UK and in Scotland around the negative effects that they've done that they've had on the rural economy there, where there simply just isn't enough accommodation, whether it's a glamping site, a big hotel, or cottages being used by people. So yeah, we'll keep monitoring it. I think it's a really interesting topic, actually, to go through. We better call it quits there, because for once we're on time. I'm going to attribute it to jet lag, Sarah. So well done you for being heavily jet lagged. What have you got coming on? What have you got going on this week? Is it just recover?
It's recovery. Yeah, I've got Pilates tonight, which let's see if I make it. And other than that, I think it's like my Pilates class ends at 9. I think I'll be in bed at 9:30. That's my plan.
Good for you.
Recuperate.
Good for you. I hope that you keep yourself honest and keep yourself fit ahead of the Christmas madness. So for me, it's a bloody challenge at this time of year, isn't it? Because you get invited to Christmas dinner after Christmas dinner, and you need to run it off in the morning or go to your gym class. So I'm going to fight the good fight. Let's keep each other honest over this festive period and keep checking in, yeah?
Sounds good. I'll keep you honest.
All right, look, Nice to see you. And to all you guys at home, thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the episode, please hit like, share, subscribe in all the usual social places. If there's anything you'd like to feature that you think's going on in Europe that we're not talking about or we haven't touched on before, reach out to us and tell us what it is, and we'll get it into the show. Until next time, many thanks.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.